Beck, who is joining us from Los Angeles. So Beck, it's all you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Molly. Hi, everyone. My name is Beck. I'm an alcoholic. And,
hey, Beck.
Hey, Beck.
Thanks for having me today. My recovery date is 7/11/2005. And it's been quite the journey the last 14 and a half years. Sometimes I just can't even believe it, you know. The only way I know how to share is what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I'll do it in a quick, 5, or hopefully like a 3, 6, and 5 or whatever. However you add up 15 minutes. I'm not a mathematician. I think my addiction really started. I was actually really taught to lie from a very young age. I grew up in a regular alcoholic home with an alcoholic dad and an Al-Anon mom, or should be an Al-Anon mom, but a codependent mom. And I got to lie from a pretty early age. I was actually a dare kid. For some of you who maybe don't know what a dare kid is that, dare to keep kids off of drugs. I was like super anti like alcohol, drinking, smoking. Because all I knew was that my dad was an alcoholic, and alcoholics make your life horrible. And I never wanted to be one. So it was funny when I found myself in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous many years later. And, but, I think lying was my first addiction, and being dishonest, and I got what I wanted, and I got to do what I wanted, and I got to be who I wanted. The only problem was that being inside, I was really, I was dying inside. I was different from a very young age. And so anything that anyone older than me was doing that would make me cool, that's what I wanted to do. And so, I started drinking at 12 or 13 with the basketball team. And I started to, I wanted to make sure that no one knew that I was drinking, so I got really good grades. I was like a perfect student. I was friends with all the teachers, so I wouldn't get busted at school. But I was drinking, Malibu rum and orange juice, was my drink of choice all through high school. Gross, now that I think about it. But, I was drinking to hide. I was drinking to be cool. All I knew was that drinking calmed my nerves. And I was able to really just kind of get through. I went to a very Catholic high school, and being who I was wasn't really accepted there per se. And so I really, again, just continued to want to fit in. And as my dad's alcoholism got worse and he hit bottom, I saw my drinking increase as well. Again, my mom was so checked out, like no one even knew. And I think when I got sober and I told my mom I was getting sober, she was like, "You have a problem with alcohol?" I was like, "Yeah, and other things." But that's how well I hid who I was my whole life. When I was 21, I moved from Los Angeles up to Northern California to Santa Cruz, and I worked in a bar, and I was a bartender because that's the best job for someone like me to hide out in. Because you know what, there's always people that are worse off than you. So my drinking could increase and could continue to get worse. My relationships continued to get worse, but I wasn't having like huge consequences. I wasn't going to jail. I wasn't doing those things, but I was definitely estranged from my family. I was going through relationship after relationship, and you know, I was kicked out of most of the bars in Santa Cruz for either getting into fights or, my mouth popping off. And I found myself just drinking at home mostly when everyone else would go to bed. And I was like hiding, again, hiding who I was, hiding these secrets. But, one thing that happened through that time when I was drinking was that I met someone who would come into the bar on, not every night, but like, on the weekends. And her and her partner would dance, and they would dance till 2 a.m, and they would order soda water with cranberry and lime. And I was like, who are these people? And there was something about them that like, there was like life in their eyes, which is something that I didn't see in myself. I just saw a lot of darkness when I look back in the mirror. And come to find out, like this person was my like token sober friend. Found out that she was in recovery. I found out that I was her token drunk friend. I would tell her about all the dramas of the night before. And one night, I think it was like in May, or I woke up to a text message that said, yeah, let's have lunch. And I was like, what, I was like a drunk texter. Like that was my thing. Like I would send out all of my feelings via text. And so I scrolled through my text messages, and it said, it was about 4 a.m, and it said, I need help. And it was to my one sober friend. And so she's like, so we have lunch, and she said, there's a way. If you want to go to a meeting, I know of a couple. And I said, no. That's not the problem here. Like alcohol is not the problem. It's everyone else. If everyone else was just like, would do what I needed them to do and weren't so dramatic, my life would be better. And she's like, and I said, and I probably served all of those people. Cause I was again, I was just like so into self. And she's like, well, we can go up to San Francisco where no one would know you. But I was like, no. But I think at that point, that was like where the mustard seed was planted for me that day over a cheese plate, at lunch. And this person ended up moving to Bozeman, Montana, to open up a restaurant. And she was joking and asked me to come with her and said, you should, you have experience in restaurants and stuff, you should come with. And I decided to come with. And I think she was really surprised, but I think that responsibility prayer of like, when the hand of AA, reaches out, when someone reaches out, I think she took that responsibility and was like, yeah, come on with. And I was in Bozeman, so people like me do not live in Bozeman, Montana. I'd never been, sight unseen. It was July. I was like, I'm going to go to summer camp. It's like 3 months. I can't drink at their house because, that's, I don't want to, mess with their sobriety, which is so funny to think of because they had like 10 years at the time. So I ended up going to Montana, and they were going to meetings, like for 3 weeks, they were going to meetings, and they were happy, joyous, and free, and all those things that we talk about in recovery. And I was miserable and resentful, and probably hadn't changed my pajamas in like 3 weeks. One thing that happens in 12-step, houses is that there's a lot of big books around, and 12, and so what happened for me is that I took one of those big books and I would hide it under the bed like it was a dirty magazine, basically. And I would read it at night, and I'd be like, I have nothing in common with this Bill W. guy. I don't know what the heck is going on. What it did do is it helped me to sleep. I'll just be honest. Like that, like it put me to sleep. I was like, this is boring. Because I didn't know that I had to be taken through, with someone else and taught these ways. So just reading it, it doesn't make sense really, especially with like a week without a drink or a drug. I was on a hike with them, smoking a pack of cigarettes. when I finally broke down and started crying and I said, I think I need a meeting or something. I've never seen a car like really like get to someplace so fast. I think they were just waiting for me, you know, it's like, and they didn't never push like coming to a meeting. They never did that. They just kind of waited. And I'm so grateful for that, because then I got to come too, and I got to show them, or they got to show me how they did things. My first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous was, I don't remember it, but it was full of cowboys. I do know that. And people that were not like me. I sat there and cried because I was like, you know, I can't believe that my life has brought me to this point, like really full of shame. And then on the other hand, like full of absolute hope, because there were people like me who had, you know, had something that I obviously wanted, because I followed these two individuals who were in recovery, who never pushed AA on me, but they had something about them, and there was a light about them, and I wanted that light, but I just didn't know how to get it. Alcoholics Anonymous for me was a saving grace, and um, I didn't do it perfectly. I did my 4-step perfectly, absolutely. I did it and color coded and all of those things. I was very professional. But you know, one thing that happened for me is that I dove into Alcoholics Anonymous. I helped start some, because when you go from a DJ and a bartender in a gay bar in Santa Cruz, California, on New Year's Eve, to a Alano club with 2 banjos and like white cake on New Year's Eve the next year, something has to shift, right? And so a group of us would get together and we would create like parties and stuff, and we would spend all year long, like, you know, glittering things and like just making, you know, doing these like young people events that was about having fun in recovery. And I don't think if I didn't have that in my first 5 years of recovery, I don't know if I would have stayed sober or not. I don't know. But for me, it was being around that fellowship that really helped me to walk through the hard things, walk through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, to walk through, you know, my first 4-step and my first, you know, when I started doing my 9-step. Lots of people say don't leave before the 4-step, and I'm always encouraging to not leave before you do some amends, because that is really, truly where miracles happen, where relationships change, or they dissipate, you know, as they're supposed to. You know, you get to let go of them, or you get to, you know, or you get to reconnect. That certainly happened for me with my mom specifically, and some relationships too. I had a pretty hardcore sponsor when I did my 9-step, who, I was in Montana, so I was like, you know, I'll do my 9-step. I'm willing, you know, to do stuff, you know, they're all in LA, but I'm willing to do it. And she's like, you're buying a ticket. You're buying a ticket and you're going to Los Angeles, and you're going to do your 9-step. And I did probably like 10 or 11 amends in one weekend. And it was wild. It was just like one after another. And I didn't even get to, I think that was the best way. I didn't get to process it until probably like a week later, you know, where I was like, whoa, that was a lot. And, but it's just what we do. And like, sometimes like for me, like doing the steps is like, I'll be done with I'll go through the steps and I'll be like, wow, I have like another year sober. I can't even believe I didn't pick up. I did what good alcoholics do when they get into recovery. I went back to school and I went to the dentist. And I did, you know, I ended up with my undergraduate degree. I was supposed to be in Montana for 3 months. I stayed for 5 years. And then I went to grad school in Minneapolis. So shout out to Minnesota. And I lived in Minnesota for 5 years and got into the fellowship there. And I'll say that like, for me in Minnesota, after I graduated grad school, there was still like this gnawing thing about my recovery that, not my recovery, but about myself, that I wasn't really ready to share with the world until I became really depressed in recovery. And I always share this part of my story because I think that to say that we get sober and everything's, you know, sunbeams to Jesus is like that's not always how it goes. And I suffered with some really bad depression because I wasn't out about being trans. And so even to my best friends, to all of my friends, I wasn't really out to them. So I ended up going I actually stood on a bridge over the 35 freeway, and I had a moment of clarity where I didn't want to cause trauma to someone else. And I stepped back that day in October, 8 or 9 years ago now. And I decided to get some outside help. And, you know, in the big book, it says, you know, to seek outside help when necessary. And I did. And I worked on myself. I worked on my trauma. I worked on my coming out process. And that, and I was so scared to come out because I was so scared to lose my friends. And, you know, I came out in high school and I lost a lot of friends. I came out sober and I lost a lot of friends. I didn't want to come out again and lose more people. I didn't think that my recovery could handle that. One thing that I've found out in Alcoholics Anonymous is that, you know, I've been more accepted here for who I am than anywhere else. And being a person in recovery, being trans, being queer, being, you know, all of these things are just smaller parts of a greater whole. And Alcoholics Anonymous taught me that I can get right-sized to around all of this. Today, my life looks pretty normal. It's weirdly normal. I like to, you know, have routine. I like to be boring. I found myself watching Little House on the Prairie the other day. I was like, what am I doing? Netflix, you know, it just takes you there. But, you know, like I really, I try to carry this message when I can. I'm very out about my recovery. I don't hide it. And that's for me. That's safe. That's what I need to do for myself. I talk to an alcoholic person in recovery every single day. I don't get to a meeting every day. I'm in the process of looking for a new sponsor. You know, I have friends who, you know, and with like 14 and a half years sober, sometimes it can be a little bit harder to find people who have longer term recovery. And that's what I need in a sponsor. But I have friends who I connect to who, if I need to do a 4th step, if I need to do a 10 step, if I need to talk about this stuff, I talk to them. I don't know, like, I think, you know, I've gotten through some really hard things. 2019 was there's a lot of loss for me. And really, I mean, I go to therapy and I talk about it, and I talk to my friends, and what I've found is that in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I can stop talking about it and just listen, and I can just be and not think about myself for a little bit, which is so helpful for me because I can get wound up real easy. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. I'm so stoked to be in this room with like people from all over the world. That just like is so exciting, and with old friends and, you know, and new ones, and just knowing that this message is everywhere, and anywhere and anytime that I need it, I can find it. So thanks for letting me be here today, and thanks, Molly, for having me.
Thanks, Beck.
Thanks, Beck.
Thank you, Beck.
Thank you.